What's up, guys? So one thing that I see that happens quite a lot is that people want to learn the latest framework in Python or JavaScript and start building apps without building the proper foundations. So today we're gonna do over 20 problems in Python. They are basic problems, but the rule here is if you wanna move on to more advanced Python stuff, so if you wanna do Django, Flask, or anything more advanced building apps, make sure you can do all of the problems in this list in under 2 minutes. They are not hard, but you need to have a mastery of the fundamentals before getting started. So without further ado, let's get started with problem 1. So problem1.py. So we'll start pretty simple. So I want you guys to try to add numbers from 1 to 10. Okay, but before doing that, let's do problem 1. I want you guys to use Python 3 for loops in 3 different ways. Okay, so the first one, I want you guys to do a for each loop. So for each loop. So basically, if you guys don't know what a for each loop, so I'll have a list here. So let's call this list X. X will have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's make other numbers. 10, 9, 5, 3, 2. What we want is to loop over the values of this list without using range, just looping through these values directly. Then I want you to loop through the list indexes. So the index of 10 is what? 0. The index of 9 is what? 1. The index of 5 is what? 2. So I want you to show the indexes of all of those values. Finally, I want you to loop through the values of the list using the index. So now that you've looped through the index of this list in the second item here, I want you to say, okay, I'm gonna loop through this using range now. So I is equals 0 is 10, I equals 1 is 9. So using the index, we're gonna print the value directly. So stop the video and try this. Okay, so if you tried, let's do a for each. So for, and here I can name anything. So for val in X, print val. So let's save and run this. Okay, so let's run this. So I'm gonna do Python 3 problem 1 and it prints 10, 9, 5, 3, 2. So that's one way of printing values in Python, so memorize that. Another way of printing values in Python is doing a for, looping through the indexes. So we'll do for I in range. Observe the variable name doesn't matter. I can call this Y. Just don't name it X, because X is the name of the list. Name it Y, name it anything. Okay, so now if I want to loop through the indexes, so 0, 1, all the way to the last index, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, I use length of the list, because that will start at 0 all the way to the length, but since this is not inclusive, so it doesn't actually go up to length of X, it goes up to length of X minus 1. We use length X. Let me show what I mean. So I'll comment this out just so you guys are not confused. So let me print this. And now you get 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now it's not the values, of the list 10, 9, 5, 3, and 2, but the indexes. However, using the index, I can grab the value. So I can say x square bracket 0, that gives me 10. X square brackets 1 gives me 9. So I can use the index, so for I in range length x, so similar to what we had before, but I'm gonna print now each value using square brackets. So I starts at 0, so x0 will be 10. Then I will be 1, x1 equals 9, I equals 2, so on and so forth. So let's print this. I'm gonna comment this out. Okay. So we're printing this using square brackets. If we print this, we get 10, 9, 5, 3. Observe this way of for loop is the same as this one up here. It's just a different way. Okay? So I hope you guys memorize this, because this is done over and over again. You might see other ways of looping, but those are the main ones you need to know 100%. Okay? So this is problem 1, create. So the problem is create a list, and then you want to loop through the list using a for each for index, let's call this for index, and a for value, so a for loop value with index. So 3 different ways, all of that under 2 minutes. I believe there is memorizing is not always bad, especially this like foundational stuff. So I actually use the debugger here because I think it really helps you guys understand. So I'll put a breakpoint here and you guys can see what's gonna happen. So let's wait for the debugger to start. So now it stopped here. This is my array X. If I step, you see that my val is 10. So at every iteration, and then I'm gonna print 10. Observe the terminal here. It's gonna show 10. Now val will be 9, which is the next one. Now it's gonna be 5, so on and so forth. Now if we go here, you guys will see that I now is not printing the values themselves, but it's printing the indexes. So it's gonna print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, the indexes. We can grab specifically values using the index. So that's what we'll do here in this loop through the values of the array using indexes. So we go 10, 9. So those are the values, but I'm using the indexes. Okay? So I'm assuming here you guys already have a familiarity with basics. I'm just going through some classic problems. So this is problem 1. Let's now go to problem 2. So problem 2 is, let's come here. I'm gonna create a new called problem2.py. So problem2.py is, we've seen loops, but now I want you to loop. So print the values from 1 to 100. Okay? So let's do that. So I want you guys to do under 2 minutes. And so the way this works is, I want to do for I in range. So the first one, if you look here on VS Code, it even gives you kind of how this works. but the first one will be where do I start? So I start at 1. Where do I end? I end at 100, but it's not inclusive. So if I actually, so what does it mean to print to be not inclusive? So let's say I have a range from 1 to 10, range 1 to 10. I can actually show you guys here on the terminal. So if I do range, so list allows us to see what range does. So if I do 1 to 100, it creates a list from 1 to 99. So if I actually want, so it's not including the 100. If I want to include the 100, I need to go one more. So now you guys can see that it adds the 100. So let's do for I in range 1 to 101, we're gonna print I. Okay, so this is straightforward. Let's print this. So I don't want to print 1, I want to print I. So now if I run this, oops, if I run this code, let me Python 3 problem 2. It prints 1 to 100, okay? So now within problem 1, I want to now to print the from 0 to 100, but only even numbers. There are different ways of doing this, but I want you to do using for loops. Use for loops. Try all of these under 2 minutes, guys. So one way you can do this is to do, so right now we're doing the same as we had before, but if you want only even numbers, so observe that even numbers, they skip 1, so they jump 2, right? So we can add a third argument here. Oops, that allows us to skip 2. So we print I, and this will help us. This will help us print the odd numbers, the even numbers. Okay, so let's print this. And it didn't work because, let me see, I didn't save, I think. Let's see. No, so it's because we're starting at 1. So since I want to go from 0 to 100, not 1 to 100, I put a 0 here. So it's actually, you guys see, because you guys can learn how to do. So now it's working. So now I started at 0. So observe the first thing here is where we start. The second one is where we end, not inclusive. So we don't include 101. We go up to 1 less than that. So it's the same as if you come from other programming language saying I less than 101. That's the second argument. So we don't go up to 101 exactly. And then we skip 2. So we go 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, so on and so forth. Sounds good? So this was problem 2. So try this, stop the video, try it. You have to be able to do this under 2 minutes. So you wanna print the values from 1 to 100 and then print from 0 to 100, but only the even numbers, only the even numbers. So let me actually call this skipping. No, it's okay. Let's do only even numbers. So problem 2. Okay, problem 3. This is also you guys can get a good foundation in coding. So I skipped 3, so let's continue with for loop. So create a for loop. I'll actually put this here. So I put one problem at a time. So that was problem, this is problem 3. Print from 0 to 2 only the even numbers. This is the other one. Okay, so now problem 4 .py. I want you guys to sum numbers from 1 to 100. So you're gonna do 1 to 10. So you're gonna do 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 all the way to 10. So first things first, let's create a loop that goes up to 10. So remember, the first one is 1. So we start at 1, we go up to 10. Since it's not inclusive, we put 11. Let's first print I to see if everything is working as we expected. So we're gonna run this Python 3 problem 4 and everything is working. So now we need to add this to a variable, because otherwise we can't keep track of the sum. So we need to add 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 7 somewhere. So where do I put it? I need a variable, so I create a variable called sum. Okay? And now I'm gonna add I to sum. So I'll say sum equals sum plus I. So what am I doing here? Sum is 0. I will start at 1. So I'll do 0 plus 1, 1. And I'll put it back here. So actually, let's see what's going on using the debugger. The debugger is a great tool to understand what's going on. So we're gonna do debug. You see that the first value of I will be 1 and sum will be 0. So now we're gonna add 1 to sum and put it back at sum. So the order that things gets computed is we first do sum plus y, then we store it at sum. So what's sum? 0, what's I? 1, so now we put it at 1 at sum. So now my sum is 1. Now my I is 2, so I do 2 plus 1, 3, and I put it back at sum, 3. So I equals 3 now, sum is 3, 3 plus 3, 6. So that will go on until, let's now print the sum in the end, just so we know that it's working. There is nothing special about printing sum. Printing sum is a way for us to know what is going on, okay? So we know what the value of sum is in the end. So let's just run this code or stop the debugger. Okay, and now let's print this problem. So problem 4. And you see 55, if you add up on your calculator, you see that 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 is equals to 55. So try to do that under 5 minutes. Now problem 5.py. What we want now is to add the odd numbers from 1 to 100. So add the odd numbers. No, so add 1 plus 3 plus 5, which are the odd numbers, all the way to 99. So the first step is to print those numbers. So I want to print 1, 3, 5. So you need to do this step by step. So I start at 1, I go up to 99, not inclusive. So I go 1 more. Since I'm going 2 steps at a time, if I don't put anything here, it's the same as having 1. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I don't want to go 1 by 1. I want to go 2 by 2. So from 1 to 3 to 5. So I'm gonna put a 2 here. Okay, So now let's print I. So printed 1, 3, 7, 8. So not 99, it printed up to 9. Let's save this. We want to go up to 99. Okay, so we want now to sum them. So the same thing from the previous problem. We're going to create a variable called sum. And now we're going to add I to sum. So we can do what we did last problem. Sum equals sum plus I. But we can also do a shorter version. We can do plus equals I. So what's sum plus equals I? It's the same as sum equals sum plus I. Okay. So those are the same things. Here I'm gonna do plus equals I, but you need to memorize that sum equals sum plus y is the same as sum plus equals I. Same thing. So in the end, when I print it, when I print sum, I'm gonna have 2500, which is the sum from 1 to 99. Okay, problem 5. So hopefully you guys are following, but you need to try this on your own. So these are all problems that will help you master the fundamentals of Python. So this is if you wanna get the solution to this, check the description, I have the solution. So now we'll go to problem 6. So problem 6, what we want now is to loop reversed. So loop from 100 to 1. So that's what we're gonna do, and print the values. So for I in range. So always the first one is where do we start. So now we don't start at 0 or 1 as we were doing before. We start at 100. Where do we want to go to? To 1. But it's 1 not including 1, the second argument. So we need to go one more. Okay, so remember that it's the same as doing here I greater than 0. So I will never reach 0. It will go up to 1. So same thing here. We want it to go back to 1. And now this third argument is what are the steps we're doing? Are we going up or back? And in how many steps? So we want to go back once. So then if we print I, we're going to so problem 6, that's what we're gonna print. So we're gonna print 199, 98 all the way to 1. Sounds good? So now let's go to problem 7. Problem 7.py. Again, take a time to try these problems. You have to be able. Try problem 1. Once you can do under 2 minutes, move to problem 2. Once you can go do it under 2 minutes, problem 3. So now I want you to add all the numbers from 99 to 1. All the numbers. So in the previous one, we just wanted to go from 100 to 1. Now we want to go from 99 to 1, and actually we want to add all the numbers from 99 plus 97. So we're going backwards and we're 95 all the way to 1. We're going backwards, so let's try first to go from 99 to 1. So we do for I in range 99, 1. So why 99? That's where we start. We want to go to 1, but it's not including 1. So we go 0. And then we do minus 1 because we're going... No, minus 2 now. Why minus 2? Because we're skipping 2 backwards. So let's see if we're able to do that. And I need to print problem 7. So that worked. I went from 99 to 1. So always step by step. Now I want to add them. So I need to create a variable that will keep that I'll add the values of I2. So I can do sum equals sum plus I, or I can use that shorter version, same thing. So sum plus equals I. And then, since I'm done, I want to print the sum. If I print the sum here, it's not a good idea, because if I print the sum here, look what's gonna happen. I'm gonna print every single loop. I want just the sum once the summation is over. I just want to know the value of 2500. I don't care about the rest. So that's why the indentation is important. If I put inside, if I put here, this will be inside of the for loop. If I put it back here, this is outside, so that means I've added all the values from 99 to 1 to this variable sum, and I'm done. So now let's run this. 2500. If I put a breakpoint here and I run the debugger, you're gonna see what the values of I are. So I will start at 99. Sum is 0 because I declare it here. So now my I is 99. I'm gonna add 99 to sum. And you see that the value of sum now is 99. Now my next I will be what? 97, because I do have -2 here. So I'm going backwards to I. 2 steps at a time. So now I'm gonna add 97 to 99. 196. Then I'm gonna go 95 plus 196. So plus equals 1, I'm adding I to sum every single iteration. Iteration means repetition. Mastering the nomenclature is important. Sounds good? Problem 7. So hopefully you guys by now are pretty familiar with loops. So now let's start mixing things up. So now I want you to understand the idea of a remainder, because this is important to programming in general. So what can I do? So I wanna check if a number is, so create a number, I want you guys to create a number, and it's gonna be an integer. So create an integer. Print if the integer is even or odd. So I'll create a variable called num. Let's do it 20. So how do we check if a number is even or odd? The way you do it is you use this symbol here called modulo. So modulo is really cool because when we do a division, for example, 20 divided by 5, my quotient, so is 4, right? And my remainder is 0. What if this number was 21? It's still 4, my quotient, but my remainder is 1. What if this is 22? The quotient is still 4, the remainder now is 2. So the module, when I do 22 module 5, it gives me this value here. It will give me 2 because it doesn't give me the quotient as a normal division does. So if I do 25 divided by 5, I'll get 4. But the remainder gives me the remainder. The module gives me the remainder. If you don't remember how division works, Khan Academy is a great resource. But now let's go back. So I want to check if it's even or odd. A great way to check if it's even or odd is dividing a number by 2. Because if I divide, for example, 50 divided by 2, this is 25 and this will be 0. Now if this is odd, this will be remainder 1, right? If this is 52, the quotient will be 26 because 2 times 26 is 52. The remainder is 0. Now 53, the remainder is 1. So doing any number module 2, if the remainder is 0, it's even. If the remainder is odd, it's 1. So let's do if num module 2 equals 0, I'm gonna print it's even, else I'm gonna print it's odd. Okay, so let's see if this works. So let me go back to here and print problem 8. I need to remove those numbers. I think I didn't save. So now it should work. So it is even. Now let me change num to an odd number. Let's say if it's odd. Problem, so Python 3, problem 8. It's odd. So this is good, okay? So now we're gonna use module for another thing, grabbing the last digits. This will be useful in many operations you do. So grab, so create two integers, check if they have the same last digit. Print if they are the same. Print yes if they are the same. Print no if they are not the same. So let me create two numbers. Num1 will be 12, num2 will be 13. So how do we grab the last digit of a number? The way you grab the last digit of a number is using module as well. So if we do any number module 2, we realize that if the remainder is 0, it's even, 1 is odd. Now a cool property of remainder is if I do any number, let's say 15, module 10, the quotient here will be 1. The remainder is always the last digit. So let's now put here 16. This will be 6. Let's now put 57. Now the quotient will be 5 and the remainder will be 7. So the great thing here is that we can grab the last digit by using module 10. So this makes our life easier because I can say if num1 module 10 equals. So let me use, just to make it more clear, I don't think it would affect the code, num2 module 10. So basically this will grab the last digit and compare with the last digit of num2. If they are equal, I'm gonna print yes, else I'm gonna print no. So now let's run this code to make sure that everything is working. So Python 3, problem 9, no. So they don't have the last digit, that makes sense, right? So let's change them now to a situation where they do have the last digit equals, so it prints yes. Okay, so create two integers, check if they have the same last digit, print yes if they're the same, print no if they're not the same. Okay, sounds good. So now let's do a classic problem called FizzBuzz, which will connect all the ideas we've talked so far. So FizzBuzz works like that. So create, print numbers from 1 to 100. If number is divisible by 3, print fizz. If number is divisible by 5, print buzz. If number is divisible by both 3 and 5, print FizzBuzz. Else, just print the number. Print the number. So, okay. So now let's do this. So first step, let's just print numbers from 1 to 100. So the way we're gonna do is for I in range 1 to 100, so it's not including 100. So we go up to, it's the same as I less than 101 in a while loop. So 101. So let's see if it's printing from 1 to 100. Okay. So let's go ahead and print. So this is actually problem 10. It is complaining. Let me just exit this. What is going on? Okay, because I put Ranger, Power Ranger. So it's not that. So now if you look, it prints values from 96, 95, so on and so forth. So we are on the right track. Let's now do a little bit more work. So now we want to print fees if it's divisible by 3. The way to check if a number is divisible is using module and checking if the remainder is 0. For example, 6 divided by 3, the remainder of that is 0. So that means 6 is divisible by 3. 9 divided by 3, the remainder is 0. So that means the remainder is 3. So basically we'll say if I module 3 is equals 0, we print, we're gonna print I. We're gonna print fees. Else, let's just print the number. Print I. So let's see if this is working. Okay. So it is printing for 99, 96. Let's go the first numbers. So it's printing for 3, 6. So far so good. We also want this to print bus when it's divisible by 5. So since we have other condition, I say I module 5 equals 0. I print bus. Okay. So let's do that and print it. So I printed for, let's see. So for 5 I printed bus, for 6 I printed bees. So far so good. The only one missing is fees bus. So let's do with a mistake and then let's fix it. So now if both conditions, so if I module 3 is equal 0 and I module 5 equals 0, that means it's divisible by both 3 and 5, we print fees bus. Okay, so let's see this and see if this works. So for 15 here should print fees bus because 15 is the first number that is divisible by both numbers. But observe it printed fees. Why is that? Because of my if statement, right? So he will see that 15 is divisible by 3. It's gonna print fees. And in an if else statement, if the first condition is true, it never checks the others. So the problem is that we're not checking here at the top. If this is at the top, it's not gonna print fees, but first it's gonna print fees bus. So now let's move this to the top. Let's change this to if, because the first one is always an if, the following ones are always a if, and the last one is an else. Not always, but most of the times. So now this works. So if we print fees bus, it's gonna, when we're at 15, you're gonna see that it prints fees bus. Okay, so hopefully you guys got the idea with how for loops works. So that's a very important topic. Now let's move on to the next topic. We're gonna talk about strings. So strings are just they're just letters together in Python. So and they work similar to lists. So we've been talking, we didn't talk about lists yet, but we'll talk about lists. So let's create a string. So text equals coding. So if I want, so this works, the first one is 0. So this works just like when we did the first exercise. The index of the first is 0. The index of the second is 1. The index of the third is 2. The index of fourth is... So let's just loop. So I want to loop. I can do the same things I did on problem 1. So on problem 1, what did I do? So this, I created a list and then I loop through each value, right? I can do the same thing with strings. So let's do that with strings. So I'm gonna actually, this problem is to repeat problem 1, but with a string. So I'm gonna first do a for each loop. So the way that works is for char in text, print char. So if we run this program, it's gonna print what? The values, the letters of coding. So problem 11, it's gonna print RCODING. Okay, what about the indexes? The index of C is 0. So let's do for index in range length of text, same thing as problem 1. So think of a string as similar to a list in a lot of ways. We can print the index. Okay, so the name of this variable, regardless of whether it's called index, it's index. So char, if I call this x, it would still be equivalent to the index of the string. So now if I print that, it's gonna print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is the position of each letter. And finally, I can print the letters by using the index. So this is printing index. Now I can print the letters using the index with for loop. So there are three ways of doing the same thing. So for index in range length of text, I'm gonna print what? The text with square brackets I. Okay, so this will print each letter, but now using the index. So it's not I. Let's actually change this to I. So now it's gonna print what? The letters RODRI, CODII, NGO. So 3 ways of looping. So this is substring. So now problem 12. Problem 12.py. I want, so create a string, print the last letter. Okay, so what I want you to do is do that. So let's create text equals coding. To print the last letter, I'll do print text. Now to grab, let's actually start with the first letter. So first, to make it easier, first letter. To print the first letter, I use the index. The index of, we start counting programming at 0. So the index of C is 0. So to print C, the first letter, I say text 0. So let me run problem 12. Okay, it printed C. Okay, so problem 13, as you might have guessed, is to print the last letter. So I'm gonna say text equals coding, and I'm gonna print the last letter. So how do I print the last letter? I can use -1, you might see this, so this is okay. But since you're learning, you guys are learning, I want you to get the intuition. We need to get the index of the last letter. How do we do that? We get the length of the string. The string here is called text. Sometimes I see people doing str because in problems there are str. Observe that str was never created as a variable, so you can't use str, it's text. That's the name of the variable. So, but what is length? So length is a function in Python that gives you the size of the string. So what's the size? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the index of the last letter is not 6. If we count starting at 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's actually length of text -1. So if you wanna grab the last letter of a string, you use -1 to grab the last letter. And that works regardless of the size of the string, because you're grabbing the length of the text. So if I add new letters, it will still grab the last letter, because it will say, what's the length of this? This will be something -1 that gives me the last one. Why -1? Because we start counting at 0. So that gives me, this is problem. Let me run this. So that gave me A. Okay, so that was the problem. So create a string and print the last letter. Sounds good? So what about ranges of letters? So how do we print ranges of letters? That's what we're gonna see now. So problem 14. So I want you guys to print the, so create a string, print the string without the first letter. So I'm gonna create text coding. I want you to print without the first letter. So the way this works is you need a range of values, not one letter. If you have one letter, you don't have semicolon, I mean. But if you want many letters, which is called substring, you use a colon. Where do we want to start? We want to start at 1 because we're cutting the first letter. What is the last one? The last one is length of text. So why length of text? This is also not inclusive. So 0, we want to go up to G. Which is the index of G? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. But G is 5. This is not inclusive. So we want to go up to 6, which is exactly length of text. So if we print this, we get print problem 14. Another way you might see, let me save, problem 14. Yeah, so I printed without the first. Another way you might see is this, but you need to understand what this means. This means start at 1 and go all the way to the end, okay? So this is the this problem. So now let's go do problem 15. So create a string, print, let me see if everything's getting recorded. Yeah, print the string without the last letter. So I'm gonna create a string, text equals coding. And now I'm gonna not print the last letter. So I'm gonna say print text. I started 0, so I started C. Last time we skipped C, so we started at 1, but now I want to include C. And I don't want to include the last letter, so what can I do? Since it's not inclusive, if I put the index of G, since the slicing is not inclusive, I want to put what after the colon? The index of G. So that basically says from 0, go from 0 up to, but not including G. So what is the index of G? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could do that, but if I change to more letters, this wouldn't work, because now the last letter is not 5 anymore, it's something else. So a way that you can do this in a way that works regardless of the size of the string is to do the length of that string. But if you do this, it will print the entire thing, because length of text is 1 after G. It's 1 index, so what's length of text? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that will give me from 0 to 5 including 5, and that's correct. But I don't want to include G, so I do -1. Okay? So my terminal stopped working for some reason. Let me go to the next one. So Python 3, problem 15. So it didn't print the last letter. You might see this, which is more common in Python, but I want you to understand how slicing works, because you need to understand the concepts, not memorize stuff. Okay? So coding. So now problem 16. So create a string called coding, a string with value of, I don't know, apple. Print PPL. So my string, so my text is apple. I want to print just PPL. So PPL. So how do we do that? Always understand the concept. So what is the width range? So we're grabbing from where? From text. So we need to put text here. Where are we grabbing one letter or multiple letters? Multiple letters. So we have a colon. If it's just one letter, no colon. Multiple letters, colon. I want now to print PPL. So what is the first letter is P. How do we grab P? We start, the index of P is 1. So we do P, the index of P is 1. So we start at 1 and we go up to L. But remember, the second value here is not inclusive. So we need to go 1 past L. So the index of 1 past L. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. What is 4? It's length of text. So let's actually put 4 here, just so you guys understand. So 0, we start at 1, we go up to 4 not inclusive. What does not inclusive means? It means it's 1, 2, 3, not 4. If this was 1, 5, this would go, or 1, 6, this would go 1, 2, 3. It would grab letters at spots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but not 6. So this is what we want here, because we want letters 1, P, 2, P, 3, L, but not 4. So now let's print this. And, oh yeah, so we want problem 16. And we printed PPL. Okay? So now let's go to a more elaborate problem. Problem 17.py. So I want you guys to print 2 letters at a time. So how do we do that? 2 letters at a time. So let's create a string. So create a long string and then print 2 letters at a time. So I'll create, I don't know, what's a long string? Apple, banana, all together. I want to print 2 letters at a time. So I want to print A, P, 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 L, L, E, E, B, B, A, A, N. So how do I do that? So I do for I in range. So let's first understand this. So let's understand, if I do text 0, 2, print text 1, 3, print text, oops. Let me shift control shift shift out, yes. So 1, 3, 2, 4. Before I run this, try to think which values will get printed and then go back to the video. Did you think? So this should print AP because it's not included. 0, 1 means 0, 1 means what? 0, 1, not 2. 1, 3 means 1, 2, not 3. 2, 4 means 2, 3, not 4. So that's how string slicing works. Okay, so this should print AP, PP, PL. Let's see if that's what we get. And that's exactly what we got. Now we don't want to just print PL, we want to print all the way to the end of the string. So how do I do that? So I do for I in range. I start at 0. Now since I'm grabbing 2 at a time, I don't want to go up to A, because then I'll try to grab A and something after that, but that's gonna give me an index out of range. So this time I don't want to go up to text, because then that means I would go up to A. I want to go up to N, because I'm going current plus the next, right? So current, which is A, plus the next letter, then P plus the next. If I do A plus the next, that's gonna give me an error. So let me just print to make sure everything's working properly. So everything's working. So from 0 to 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is what I want. I want to go up to N. So always reverse engineer. Think where you want to go up to, then you put the ranges, not the other way. Okay? So now if I do text, one mistake I see often with students is, let's say I want to print the pairs, is doing something like that. So what's the problem of this? This is printing just the letters. I don't want to print, I want to range. When it's more than 1 letters, automatically put a colon. Do not put just the I here or a number here, because that's grabbing 1 letter. We want more than 1, so we need a colon. We want to go from I, so observe the pattern. What's AP? AP is text 02. PP, it's text 1, 2, 3. Then PL, text 2, 4. So observe the first thing here is always incrementing by 1. So we can use I to grab the first letter. And what comes after is always 2 plus what's on the left. So we can do I and I plus 2. Okay, so why? Because we want to loop through the entire string. We started, the first value of I will be what? 0. I plus 2 will be what? 2. So 0, 2 is AP. Then I is gonna be 1. 1, 3 is gonna be PP. So on and so forth. So if we run this, we grab, I didn't save. Don't forget to save, guys. I got the pair of letters, okay? So this is how this works. So make sure you understand this. Make sure this is easy. So now let's do problem 18. So how do we do problem 18? Problem 18 is very similar to problem 17. Very similar. but we want to not, so print 2 letters at a time without overlap. So what do I mean by that? Without overlapping letters. So what I mean is that I wanna print, like, let's say the word is apple. I wanna print APPL, so it needs to be a even number of letters, right? And then EF. I don't want APPP just like we had before, APPP, PL. So overlapping letters. So how do we do that? So let's create a text with even letters. So it's gonna be apple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, F, and AB. So I wanna print now 2 letters at a time. We always grab a substring. A substring is a smaller version of my entire string. So I always wanna grab a substring by the first letter. So I start at A, then since I don't wanna start at P, I don't wanna print PP, I'll go A, P, E, A. So let's see, so what's the index of A? 0. What's the index of P? 2. What's the index of E? 4. So we basically, let's start by seeing if we wanna print, if we print the correct indexes. So length of, so what is my last letter that I'll print is A. So that's length of text minus 1, right? Let's see, minus 1, and then I'm gonna go 2 at a time. So let me print I. Let me see if this makes sense. Okay guys, so now we're gonna do 2, we're gonna continue printing 2 at a time. So let's print it here, 2 letters at a time. Let's see what happens. So it printed so 2 at a time. So 0246, 0246. So those are the letters that we want, right? So we're on the right track. Now all we have to do is print text I plus 2. I plus 2. So if we print this, let's see what we get. We get APPL EF AB, which is what we want. Observe we're skipping 2 at a time. Okay, so now problem 19. So we want now to create a string, print 3 letters at a time. So I'll create a string, apple, banana. So now we want to print A. So what has to be our first letter? A, obviously, because we're printing APP, then PPL, PLE, but the last 3 are A and A. So the last index we want is this A here. So let's first make sure we're printing the right indexes. So this would be equals to length of n minus 2, right? So in range 0, length of text minus 2, which would be equivalent of us stopping here at A, and we're gonna skip now 3 at a time because we are now printing 3 letters. So let's first make sure that we are printing correctly. So we are printing 0, 3, which is L, 6, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's actually length of text minus 1. Because we also want to print 9, right? So 0, 1, 0, 3, 6, which is B, and then 1, 2, 3, A. So yeah, it's always good to adjust here. If you see something's wrong, there is no problem adjusting. So now we want to print 3 letters. So we do text I plus 3, because we're printing 3 letters at a time. So now if we take a look, what we're gonna get is this. We're gonna get the 3 letters that we want. To finish strings, let's do problem 20. And we're gonna get a problem on concatenation. So I want to create 2 strings, concatenate the second to the first. So text 1 will be banana, text 2 will be apple. I want to add text 2 to text 1. So how do I do that? I can say text 1 equals text 1 plus text 2. Or the same thing, but in a shorter version, is to do the plus or equals. So text 1 plus equals text 2. And then to see the contents of text 1, I can print it. So let's print problem 20. Problem 20. He's complaining. Let's see what went wrong. Python 3, problem 20. Can't open problem 20. Python 3. Oh, I called it Python 3, the problem. So let me rename it to problem20.py, and now Python 3 problem 20. So banana and apple, which is basically the second concatenated to the first one. So concatenation, this is really important. So far so good. So we saw a lot of things related to for loops. We saw a lot of things related to strings. Now let's take a look at lists, which is really important. So problem21.py. So I want you to create an empty list and append a number to this list. So let's create a list called X. To append to this list, all we have to do is say X.append. Let's put a number 10. And then let's see how X looks like. So if we print this, we'll see. Oops, so I want to do problem 21, Python 3, problem 21, 10. So that's good. So now let's do problem 22, which is that I want create a list, add values 1 to 100. So we create a list called X, and then how do we add numbers from 1 to 100? We do a for loop first, printing numbers from 1 to 100. So again, not inclusive, so 101. Let's make sure first that this is working. So let me run this. Problem 22. So it is printing from 1 to 100. So far so good. Now we want to add it to this list. So how do we add all those numbers? We put the number of the list first, dot append, and then each value, so I. So each I is gonna be appended. So let me run. Now let me print X. And I got all those values, okay? So problem 23 now. Problem 23. I want to add all values. So create a list, add values 1 plus 3 plus 5 all the way to 99 to list, loop through the list, and add all numbers inside of it. So now we're gonna do something very similar to what we had previous. So we're gonna create a list. Let's first make sure that we're able to print numbers 1 through 99. So to go to 99, we go 100 because it's not inclusive, but we're skipping 2 at a time. So we put a third argument 2. So now let's print I to make sure our I is working properly. Okay, so far, oh, I'm printing the previous problem. So let me print 23 and it's printing correctly. So now let's add all those numbers to I. Okay, so we're gonna print this to I and let's print X. So this is exactly like, not exactly, but very similar to the last problem, except we're skipping 2 at a time. Now we need to loop through the lists and add all numbers inside of it. So we want to add the values. So there are 3 loops we learned at the beginning. We have the for each, the for over the indexes, and the for over the values using the index. Since we're only interested in the values, let's use the for each, which is the most simple one. So for val in X, so this will loop through each value inside of X. What is X here? All these numbers. So we're gonna grab 1, 3, 5, and we're gonna add each value to a variable called sum. So we're gonna do sum plus equals val and print sum. Okay, so now let's see this working to 2500, which is correct. So first here we populated this list. Now we sum all the values of this list to this variable sum. Okay, so far so good. So lists are very similar to strings and that we've worked a lot, so I'm not gonna do that anymore. So now let's do some loops, some while loop stuff, which is important. So we're gonna do problem 24 problem24.py. So problem 24, what we're gonna do is we want to count numbers 1. So we're gonna add numbers from 1 to 100 using a while loop. So now not a for loop, but a while loop. So let's create a counter. So basically, we're gonna create a counter and a sum. So counter will help us do the loop, and the sum, it's what we're adding to. So we're adding 1, 2, 3 to sum, just like we did with the for loop. So while counter is less or equal than 100, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sum my counter to sum. So remember that sum plus equals counter is the same as sum equals sum plus counter. Okay, but I'll make this abbreviation. And now I increment counter by 1. Why do I do that? Otherwise we get into an infinite loop. We need somehow to get to this condition. In this I plus equals 1 is done automatically for us in the for loop. But here we need to do this ourselves, okay? So now if we print sum, we're gonna get the sum of the values from 2500. Oh no, so I wanna print 24. Count is not defined, counter. Okay, so 50-50. Okay, so far so good. So let's use this while loop thing to count the number of digits. So problem 25. So I want to count the number of digits of a number. So let's create a number. So num equals 3. Just render. So how many digits we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 digits. So one cool trick that I want you guys to know is that we can delete what is in Python, as you probably know by now, we have two ways to divide. We can do just one forward slash like that, so that gives us a decimal point. But if we divide with two forward slash, it deletes the decimal point. If we want to remove the last digit, a trick we can do is to divide by 10. So if I want to remove 3, I divide by 10 using the two forward slashes, and that gets equal to only 2, because remember that this two forward slashes ignores the decimal point. So what I can do is to count the number of digits. I need a counter to count the number of digits. So let's see, if I do, let me create here on the terminal a value called 23. If I do 23 num equals num divided by 10, now num equals 2. If I divide num by 10 again, I get what? Num is 0, because 2 divided by 10, ignoring the decimal point, is 0. The great thing here is that we can count the number of digits using that property. So while my num is greater than 0, we're going to divide num by 10 and increment our counter. So we're counting how many digits we have. So my problem is create an integer counter, and we're gonna count the number of digits. And this is a good example of why while loops have their place, because here we don't know how many times we are gonna we're going to loop on num, because we don't know yet how many digits it has. So we basically have this condition. So let's actually put a breakpoint, because this might be confusing to some of you. So let me create let's create a debugging session, and we'll see what the values are. So my counter starts at 0, my num will be this value. Okay, so now let's see what happens. So when I do num, remember this is chopping off the divided by 10, we remove the last digit. So now we got that value num without the last digit. And since we remove one digit, we increment counter by 1. Now we divide, is num greater than 10? Yes. So we divide it by 10, observe we chop off another digit, the last one, and we increment counter. So now we're gonna chop off the 2, okay? And we're gonna increment counter. So let's keep on doing that, and you see that counter increases, keeps on increasing. So we keep on going, keep on counting. So now we're at 7, 2, and counter will be 9, which is the total number of digits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So just to make sure everything. So that's it, guys. So this is one very cool way of using counter. So let's run this. Oops, I ran the wrong one. So this is problem 25. And we print 9, which is the number of digits. Okay, so while loop, very important. Make sure you guys understand this. Try to do the problem under 2 minutes. So now we'll go up to problem 30. So problem 26. Let's say I wanted to create a long digit number, and I wanted to grab the first 2 digits. So this is a cool problem because again we can use divided by 10. So if I want to, so let's create a random value, blah blah blah. If I want to grab the first 2 digits, that's 33, right? We just learned that if I divide this number by 10, I chop off the last 4. So that would be equals to that. Now if I divided this by 100, I chop off the last 2 digits. If I divide this by 1,000, the last 3 by 10,000, all of this, so I get only 33 remaining. So this is really cool because I can grab a value, like let's create this, just random values here. And the last, what are the last 2 digits? So the last 2 digits, so I can use a power. I'll show you 2 ways of doing this. So I can do print num. So how many digits I want to chop off? I want to chop off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I divide this by 10, so 10 with 6 zeros, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That will give me 23, which are the first 2 digits. Let me change this to problem 26. 23. But there is an easier way. So in Python, there is a function called poll, which you can put the number of digits of 0 you want. So this is power. So I want 6 zeros. So I say poll 10, 6. So this, instead of just putting a bunch of zeros, I can use poll. So that's a way I can get the first 2 digits of a number. Okay? So now problem 27.py. So here, let me think of a problem. So here, what I want you guys to do is to, here I'm gonna create the following pattern. So create the following pattern. I want you to print I want you to print 1, 2, 3. No, let me do with a star first. So star, 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 star. Okay? So how do you do that? You use nested for loops. So what are nested for loops? One for loop inside of the other. So I want 4 rows. So that will be, let's first print that. So for I in range 4, I'm gonna print a star. Okay, so let's see if this works. Problem 27. Problem 27. So I'm able to print 4 stars. But now within each row, I want to print a variable number of stars. So the row 1, I print 1. Row 2, I print 2. Row 3, I print 3. Since we're printing per row, we can start, just to make our lives easier, since we print 1 star on row 1, let's change this to 1, 5. So if it's the same as 0, 4. But now, what I'll have is a for loop inside of this for loop. So how many stars do I want to print in row 1? I want to print 0. So if I do I here, so range 1, my first I will be 1, right? So 1, 1 will not print anything. Now 1, the next I here will be 2, so the range will be 1, 2, so I'm gonna print 1 star. Wait, so actually I want in the first row to print 1 star, so I can't just do I, because otherwise this would be 1, 1. So I need to do plus 1, because this will go 1, I plus 1 will be 2, so this will print 1. This will make more sense once I use the debugger. Then on row 2, what does it mean to be on row 2? Let me change this to row and this to col. So here on row 1, I'm gonna do 1, 2, so that's gonna print 1 star. Then I'm gonna go my second row. So when row equals 2, it's gonna be 1, 3. It's gonna print 2. We just need, because print by default goes to the next line, we don't want to go on the next line. We don't want the second star to be below this one. We want to stay on the same place. So we do and this. And to skip to the next line, we do this. So let's see how this looks like. Using the debugger will make things much clearer. So we got that pattern. So now let's use the debugger to understand this better. And things will get clear. Okay, so my first row will be 1, and my call will be 1 as well. So this range goes from 1 to row plus 1. What's my row 1? So it's from 1 to 2, but it's not inclusive, remember that. So we'll just loop once. So we're gonna print a star. Now my call will be 2, so we'll exit out of this loop. Just the print like that skips to the next line. So observe here on the terminal that now we go to the next line. My row now will be 2. My call now will be 1 again, because basically this inside loop reinitializes. So now call is 1, and we print that again. My call is 2, we print again. Now my call is 3, which is the limit here, because row plus 1, my row is 2, row plus 1 is 3, call is 3, is gonna be 3, so we're done with the for loop, go to the next line, and so on and so forth. So this is this exercise with nested for loops. If you're taking CS50, this is similar to Mario, but it's important to know how this works. Okay, so now let's do problem 28. Problem 28.py. So we're seeing nested for loops we're seeing for loops. So now let's do a mix of things. So I want you guys to create a list of strings, and I want you to print the second letter of the second string. Okay, so first things first, let's create a string, a list of letters. So a list of strings with more than 4 letters. So all my strings need to be more than 4 letters. So I have this. So I have apple, banana, watermelon, and lemon. So I want to print the second letter of the second string. So what's the second string? Banana. Let's first try to print that. What's the index of banana? It's 1. So we're gonna say x square brackets 1. So, oops, wrong one. Problem 28. Banana. But we've just learned that we can also access letters inside of a string and we want the second letter. What's the index of the second letter? 0, 1. So we can go here and print. So actually let me put the third letter. So what's the index of the third letter? 0, 1, 2. So we can do x square brackets 1 square brackets 2. So this is very useful. So this will print N, which is the third letter of A. So let's repeat. X square brackets 1 grabs banana. Now that square bracket 2 grabs the third letter of banana, which is N. So that's why we got N here. So this is really important because we always grab things inside of other things. So problem 29 is this will start getting more complicated. So I'm gonna, let's see. I want you guys to now create a list and create a list with multiple numbers. And now I want you to print the numbers in reverse order using a loop. So we're gonna do x equals, let's create a bunch of numbers, 5, 4, 2, 1, 0. And I want to print backwards. If I do a for each loop, like we did at the beginning, in x, print I, that prints the numbers in the regular order. Okay? So 9, 3, 5. We want in reverse order. So we need to somehow go backwards. We can remember we've learned how to loop backwards in the beginning. So let's print the indexes of this list backwards. So for I in range, what's the index of the last number? It's gonna be length of x minus 1, right? So that's the index of 0. Length of in x would be outside of the array, minus 1 is 0. If you don't believe me, just take the length of x. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 minus 1, 6. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is this 0. Okay, so we want now to grab the indexes. The last index will be the index of 9, which is 0, but the second argument is not including that. So it's minus 1, so that means we'll go up to 0, but not minus 1. And we want to go backwards. So let's see if we print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, no. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Yes. So it should print 6 all the way to 0. So it does that. Now we remember it's that third for loop we've learned. It's the grab the values using the index. So now we do this. We do this and we are able to grab the values in reverse order. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 3, and 9. Okay, so final problem. I want you guys to so create a list. This is a challenge. So we can so inside of the lists you have 3. So let me think about this last problem. So we're gonna create a list called even and create another list called odd. Loop through the values from 1 to 100. If number is even, add it to even list. If number is odd, add it to odd list. So first things first, let's create the even list and the odd list. Good. So now we want to loop values from 1 to 100. Let's make sure we are able to do that. Remember, we start at 1, we go up to 100, not inclusive, so 101. Let's make sure we're printing from 1 to 101. Always a good idea to check if everything is working. So this is actually problem 30. So yes, it looks like everything is working. So now we want to check if it's even. So if you remember, we learned how to do that. We divide by 2, we do modulo 2. So if I modulo 2 equals 0, we add it to the even list. So we do even.append I. Else, if it's not even, it's odd. So we can say odd.append I. So in the end, if we want to see what even looks like, we can print even and then we can print odd. So let's see how this looks like. So, oops, why is this? Okay. So we are printed, so we have this list. If you look, it has all the even values, and this list that has all the odd values. Let's actually make this a little bit smaller, just so you guys can see better. So yeah, so the even values from 1 to 9 are here, and the odd values from 1 to 9 are here. So hope you guys enjoyed these problems. These are foundational problems. You should be able to do them under 2 minutes. You need to automate these small problems in order to be able to do harder problems. So the solution is on the description, and hope you enjoyed. Any feedback is appreciated. The solution is on the description. See you guys later.